All right, welcome to Doozer Shop. It's a good day here at the shop. I've made some good progress on the Colchester Lathe. I've showed you guys a couple of videos of me milling some parts, and finally got all the pieces together on the Colchester 17-inch lathe apron. It's the power feed that was just all messed up. I think it was kind of a bad design, the power feed. So all the pieces are milled up and bolted together, and it works perfectly. It works great, just as I planned it. So let me give you a tour of what I did, and we'll go handheld and I'll show you basically everything put together. So here we go. Alright, so the Colchester 17-inch lathe. It's been apart for a while, and you can see I got the cardboard box on the headstock, and I got the quick change apart. I've been basically restoring it. The bed's in fine shape, just everything was just, the details were kind of, so there's my cart of stuff in parts. The gap is under there at the bottom, and the pulley and the electrics. So yeah, that's pieces parts. So anyways, back over here, like I said, I got the carriage on the bed, and there was a problem with the power feed in the apron, and it's working wonderful right now. Everything is just really awesome. So you kind of kneel down. Part of the deal is I got this rod on the bottom. My light's blowing you out. There you go. So that rod keeps the handles, the single handle, from falling down too far. All right. So that's cross feed, right? That's the cross feed engagement. And the bed feed, that's the bed feed. Now, I'll show you, I'll attempt to show you. Alright, let's kind of back you up here. Alright, so what I got here, alright, I'll begin at the beginning. Kind of position this. Alright. So this is the rocker box. I'm going to disengage the rocker box down. Okay. So right there, you can see how that bar limits the drop of the handle. Okay? So what's going on here in the back, so see that pin, that dog, that tang? That pin will go into the slot of one of these blocks. So we kind of show you. You can see that, how that works. So on that bar, it says HS for headstock and TS for tailstock. That's just for orientation when I was putting it together. So that's disengaged, and it can move fore and aft. And when it hits the end, the stop, You lift it up, and as you engage it, that pin, that tang, that dog, it goes inside. It goes inside the slot of that, you know, bracket, I guess you'd call it. So this slot, it keeps the rear of this rocker box from moving fore and aft. It locates it positively because it's a tight fit in that slot. There's like a thou clearance in that slot. So that pin or that dog that's connected to the rocker box, I'm going to disengage it. It slides out, it arcs out, and then it's free to come and it goes inside that one. You kind of go. You can see it in there. So let me kind of back you up. So that's the nitty-gritty of the mechanism. Forgive me, I'm sitting on the floor. All right. So that's what it is. So I'm going to disengage it. Let me kind of, I'll use the angle. All right. Disengage it. It blocks the shot. And you can see where it locks in. Okay, so that's the deal. You know, that's and you can kind of tell it's going to do the same thing. It just and it locks in. That's it. You see how it's going in the slot? So like I said, that slot, same as this one, that prevents it from moving sideways. It's like 1,000th clearance in there. I can't really shoot it straight on, but trust me, there's 1,000th. And I've got these edges beveled, front and back. It's a symmetrical part. So what the deal is, you can move it on this rod, right? So this cap bolts to the bottom, and it's slotted. You can see how it's slotted. And there's 4 screws in the bottom, and you just tighten it down. So that bar, okay, I'm going to shoot the bottom of the rocker box casting. Like I said, forgive my HS and TS. That bolts up there, and I used, I remember, I think I told you guys, I'm trying to see if I can find it. Yeah, flathead screws. And I drilled into the oil ports. You see, there's an oil port there. I still need to put an oil fitting for a bearing, but these rear oil ports were not being used. So it matched up perfectly for threading it from converting the 1/8 inch pipe thread hole to, instead of 1/8 inch pipe thread, I made it 7/16 20 thread. And that's where those flathead screws are. And there's one on that side as well. And like I said, in the middle is that that pin, that dog, that tang. That's a 3/8 Allen head bolt with a spacer. And I turn the head of the Allen head bolt so it's nice and round and concentric. So let me move my camera back. So that's what it is, folks. And let me give you my view of down, over, and up. and you can see it in there. And it, like I said, so what the problem, okay, it was only a problem feeding in one direction. So now, let me show you here, okay. So you'll see the brass bushing coming out of the rocker box, right? Bronze bushing. And then there's a white thing. So that is a spacer, a nylon spacer. And that touches the sidewall of the apron. So that nylon spacer locates the rocker box from going too far forward. So it can't torque itself towards the side wing of the apron because it's supported there with that nylon spacer, right? It can't move because of that nylon spacer. I know lighting's a challenge. But what it can do is it can push away because there's nothing supporting it on this side. It's just a shaft. So to keep the rocker box from torquing, in this case, towards the tailstock side, you know, that's where that pin comes into play. Okay? Now, let me show you. Now, similarly, trying to get a shot, get the light up there. All right. With the rocker box on the bed feed, the longitudinal feed, with that spacer washer in there, you see the bronze bushing is, that's the one that's sticking out of the rocker box. It can't go towards the rear anymore because of the side wall of the apron. It has the bearing for the, you know, the feed rod and everything. So the rocker box can't twist towards the right because it's butted up against the side wall of the apron. But it can, however, or it could, twist to the left, forward, because it's unsupported there. So, like I said, the pin coming down, the tang, the dog, the pin that goes into that piece that I made, that little stop, keeps it from racking or twisting, because like I said, there's a worm gear in there. So I can show you guys. So it's hard to show. There's the worm gear. You can see it through the slot, kinda, and it's driven by a spur gear, which is right there, okay? And there's another spur gear that comes off the, you know, the feed rod. Okay. So, and boy, it's hard to see in there. Yep. That's the feed box. Yeah, you can see the worm in there too. So because of the worm, it has side thrust. Okay? And the only thing that locates it, here, I'll show you. All right. So this, in its bronze color, this plunger, See that plunger, how it goes in? That plunger keys in. Oh, I can show you. So you'll see in the slot, there's a recess for the plunger. That's what locates the rocker box. Now, you can see the plunger. Maybe, hold on. Yeah, so there's the plunger locked into the front wall of the apron. But the thing is, it not only keeps the handle up and locked in position, it also takes the side thrust from the worm gear that's trying to push that whole rocker box fore and aft, back and forth. But seeing as it's only mounted at the front, yes, it keeps it up and engaged in the up position, but it also takes side thrust. But because it was the only thing taking side thrust, aside from, well, okay. It was the only thing taking side thrust in the front. The back of the apron, depending on the feed direction, sometimes the side thrust was absorbed by the side wall of the apron, and sometimes it was not absorbed by anything, okay? So basically, I could feed towards the chuck and it would work fine, or I could put it, engage the carriage, the cross feed, and I could cross feed from the center of the chuck out, but not from the outside in. And if I tried doing it the other way, it would bind up, okay? So, what does all that mean, Doozer? How did you find this problem, and what made you want to try and fix it? Well, let me get up off the floor and I'll show you. Alright guys, let me show you what I was talking about. So, right now, I got the handle engaged in the bed feed position, right? So, cross feed, that's cross feed, that makes the cross feed go in and out. And this is the bed feed. And it clicks in ever so nicely. So, let me kind of kneel down here and show you. So what's going on here is, see how I'm grabbing this is the feed rod. So you got the lead screw and you got the feed rod. So what I could do is I could turn this feed rod by hand, right? So see how I'm feeding towards the chuck. The hand wheel's moving, and the whole carriage is feeding towards the chuck side of the lathe. That would work, okay? Because the torque, the sideways thrust of the rocker box, at the rear of the rocker box, it was being absorbed by the wall of the apron with that spacer washer. So now, where I detected this problem is if I spin this feed rod the opposite direction, I'm going to try and feed towards the tailstock. You can see how beautiful the carriage is moving towards the tailstock. It would not do that. It would not do that. It would bind up. It would be very hard to turn. You would have to get a big pair of channel locks or a pipe wrench down at the end of the rod to get it to move. It was no freedom. Like I said, it could move, feed towards the headstock, no problem. But to go towards the tailstock, it would bind up. And then I got to taking my hand and my fingers and I put them underneath. I was feeling around between the gaps of the pieces to see what's changing and what's moving. And I could see that the rocker box was twisting. And what it was doing is the two bushings, it was torquing the bushings sideways. My brand new bushings that I made, it was twisting them. So, and what I found is it was twisting at the pivot point of where the twist was coming from was that engagement detent. So where it was locked in, where the rocker box would click up into position, it was pivoting. So it not only held it up, but it was the pivot point for the motion that was being generated by the worm. So now, long story short, I can just with my hands turn this feed rod, right? I could feed reverse, which I could not do before, and forward was always okay because, like I said, the rocker box, the torque is absorbed by the side of the apron. Now, if I go to the cross feed, I could feed, oh, can you see the handle? Maybe you can't. There's the handle. I could feed one way, but not the other. I could feed, I'm going in. See, it normally could feed going out. That would work, okay? But I couldn't feed going from the out to the center. And now, it's just very easy. Love it. So, happy with that. That's the best way I could show you guys, is to try and, you know, spin the rods, and that's how I found it. So, yeah. All right, let me change camera angles, I'll bring it back. All right, another overall shot here of the apron on the carriage. I wanted to show you my attachment points. So on this side, I've got the oilers up top, and you'll see that area I machined after it was painted. You'll see like a little island up there of cast iron, with those 3 holes. So if you remember, I had that on the SIP jig bore machine, and I faced that while I was drilling those two Allen head screw holes at the bottom. So this side plate bolts to this side, and it's on a nice flat surface. And I got one on the other side too. Kind of see. I didn't face this one. I just made the attachment holes. It was pretty flat on its own. And you'll see I got another 2 Allen screws going vertically. So the horizontal Allen screws mount it to the side of the apron. Okay? And then those other 2 vertical screws, those are the ones that mount to my, there you go. I got a block of steel, and I got a screw mounted straight back to that bar, and that's the bar that has the stop blocks in it. And like I say, they got, on the bottom of the stop blocks is 4 bolts and a cap, right? So they can slide on the bar. There's that hole, that rectangular slot I milled in them. That allows them to slide on the bar, and of course the cross slide slot is for the tang or the pin that goes on the rocker. And like I said, on this side, I've got my numbers, my measurements written down in magic marker on the side of the plate. But there's that other block that mounts the cross rail, just with one single bolt. So you got 1 bolt tapped into the cross rail. So that works pretty well. And like I say, it's just plates of steel on the side. I'm tripping over my wire here. Okay. Yeah, it's just plates of steel mounted to the side in the mechanism underneath. So that's it. Took me, I'll have to look at the video dates, maybe a month to get this all designed and ironed out. But I think it looks good. I think the stop bar on the front looks good. The mechanism underneath certainly fulfills the need to locate that rocker box. Like I said, I believe from the factory this thing never actually worked very well. It just generated a lot of friction and a lot of side torque, and therefore wore out all those bushings. And maybe someone can comment, I don't think these bushings were ever in there from the factory, all the ones that I've made in the previous videos. Maybe they were, I don't know. But I assumed somebody had put this whole carriage, this whole apron on a horizontal boring mill and bored out for those bronze bushings, which were totally slapped out when I got it. I think it ran just in the iron casting, but I could be wrong. So anyways, that's the update. This is a major hurdle to getting this sorted out and working properly without the binding. Would it work if I didn't create this interlock mechanism to keep the rocker box from shifting? Yes, it would work, but it would wear those brand new bushings out in short order. Now when these lathes were new and it had just the steel shafts running in the iron, how long would this last? 5 years, 10 years of constant use? I would suspect 5 years, but not maybe 10 years. I think these were disposable lathes. I don't know. I just don't know. Like I said, I know Keith Fenner, Turn Right Machine, has the same lathe. I think he's got the longer bed, but essentially the same. But anyhow, I just think I fixed a definite problem that definitely existed. And I made this lathe better by adding the oilers and fixing the the feed mechanism. It's a glorious lathe. I absolutely think this is a glorious lathe with the 3-inch spindle bore, the very wide cross slide mechanism. I think it had the hydraulic tracer on it. Anyways, I just wanted to make a video. I'm not going to call it a quick video because they usually end up being longer and longer now that I got this new camera. But I wanted to give you guys an update and share my joy that my power feed mechanism is it's working. I think I'm 100% done with the power feed. Now I can continue to put this thing back together and get it running. Thanks for sticking through my videos of milling and setting this up on the SIP and making parts, and it's been a long road. I enjoy doing it. There's more to come, of course, but I feel very very good that I got my power feed mechanism finished and working the way I envisioned that it would. So pretty happy, cloud 9. Thought I'd make a video and share. Until next time, this is Doozer Shop.